Good morning, gentlemen. We are here for the fifth segment, the fifth halacha of the Think Before You Speak series of Shemirat Halashon. Today's halacha is called Magnified Sin. This share is Leilui Nishmat Chafetz Chaim Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha, dedicated for the Yeshua Gdolah of all our guys in the Chabura, as well as the Yeshuot for Klal Yisrael, as well as Refuah Shleima for Yitzchok Nisim Beluna Tikvanomi Batzara, and as well as a special Shmira and Yeshua Gedalah for Chaim Davido and Chayesara. Gentlemen, I want you to think back for a minute, if you remember, a few years ago, when those 3 boys in Israel were kidnapped. Everyone in Klal Yisrael, no matter what their religious level was, everyone was looking to do some sort of zichut, to be able to have a happier ending for what took place on that tragic situation of those 3 korbanot for Klal Yisrael. And at the time, even the least to the most of religious had a Tehillim in hand, and we were looking to do things to be able to have a Yeshua for those boys and for Klal Yisrael. I remember we asked the Gadol, and he told us, as a shul, not only should you continue to pray by P'tichat HaEchal, but for your night Seder, learn an extra minute or 2. If your night Seder goes from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, he told us, instead of starting our beat at 10 o'clock, start it at 10:02. So we got up and we announced to the entire room, guys, tonight we're learning from 9 to 10:02. We're adding an extra 2 minutes of learning for the Yeshua of the situation of these 3 kidnapped boys. And I remember clearly, after our beat was over, a guy walked up to me and said, I don't get it. 2 minutes? What is 2 minutes going to do? And I said to him, my friend, it's not 2 minutes of learning. How many guys did we have in the room at the time? We had 100 guys by our night Seder. It's 100 guys times 2 minutes of each guy's learning. We just sent up 200 minutes of Torah learning for the sake of the cause, for the Yeshua of Klal Yisrael at that moment in time. Your efforts not only go by what you do, but the size of the audience of people that you affect as well. And therefore, the same is true in the opposite vein, says the Chafetz Chaim. A person is not allowed to speak Lashon Hara. And of course, you're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara to one person. But especially so, think about it. How many times is the Lashon Hara Avera magnified when you speak Lashon Hara to the sizable audience? Could you imagine you walk up to a large group of people and you start speaking Lashon Hara? It's not one sin, but the sin of the Lashon Hara is magnified, lefi the size of the group. So if he's speaking a certain amount of words of Lashon Hara to 10 people, it's 10 times the words of Lashon Hara that's coming out of his mouth. And therefore says Chafetz Chaim, careful not to chas v'shalom fall into sin, let alone to magnify the sin. It's amazing. Any statement we make that's derogatory is Lashon Hara. But guys, even a par of a statement that you make that can be interpreted as derogatory is also infringing on Lashon Hara. It all depends on the context of the way it's said. Sometimes it could be the expression, or the sound, or the way it was said with a certain knetch to the words that can make the difference between permissible or Lashon Hara. For instance, someone says, that family, the kids are very lebedik there. They're very lively, those kids. Now, that could be taken in 2 ways. It could sound like that the kids have a lot of spunk, a lot of charm, a lot of energy, but it also could sound like that those kids are hanging from the chandeliers and that they are very difficult to handle or to control. That statement goes by the context of the way it was given over and the way it sounds to the people being told. In that house, they're always cooking. It could be a nice thing. It might be a house achnasat orchim. Or you might say that, over there, they're overindulging in what they shouldn't be overindulging in. Again, it comes down to the way you put the words and the way it's interpreted. If it's interpreted favorably or not. Be careful not just with what you say, but the tone of the way you say it. And therefore, it's interesting. When you're saying these statements that can go either way, if you're saying it in front of the person themselves, it's definitely mutar. Because we know that when you're standing in front of that person, you're going to be careful to say it in a nice way, with a nice tone. You're going to make sure that the comment comes out favorable, because you're standing in front of the person. Then already it's absolutely permissible. If you're standing in front of the person and you say that this guy's kids are lebedik, it means a compliment, because it's assuming that you wouldn't say something right in front of the person. There's even an idea to say that if you speak in front of 3 people, because it's already a group, it'll come back to that person. So it's as if you're like in front of the person. And again, if you say something that can go either way, it'll probably be understood that you meant it in the good way. Later on, we'll find out if you can rely on that 3 people concept or not. But the bottom line is, be careful with your words, be careful with the tone, and be careful with the size of the group.